10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This Is HCD. My name is Gerry Scullion and I'm a human-centred design practitioner based in Dublin City, Ireland. Now, I recently attended the excellent Pixel Pioneers conference in Belfast, and it was a really enjoyable conference, and even managed to catch up with some of the This Is HCD friends whilst I was there, John Hicks and also Jerry McGovern. Bonus! So one of the most interesting talks of the day was by someone that many of you may already know, and that's Brendan Dawes. Now, Brendan is and has been an inspirational figure for many for a long time, myself included. Now, his work is at the intersection of people, technology and objects. Now, what interests me the most about Brendan's work is his mix of analogue and digital, and that's what we cover in this episode. So what have we lost through digitisation, and how can we retain that magic? We also cover Brendan's own internal dialogue around how he describes his work and what he does, and also how lots of his work is generated through the belief of sharing everything, and how this belief itself led him to working with Airbnb and ultimately the Sundance Festival in the US. Now, Brendan is truly a gentleman of design and someone I thoroughly loved listening to speak. So let's get straight to it. Brendan Dawes, a very warm welcome to the This Is HCD podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join you.
Delighted to have you. We're at Pixel Pioneers in Belfast today, a conference that has been going for 2 years, I think, in the city, and it was a fantastic day. So let's kick off and tell me a little bit about what you do and probably how you describe what you do.
Well, I always have a problem describing what I do because I think really, I'm a designer, but no one comes to me to design things. People come to me for art-based work.
Yeah.
So I am an artist, but that word is so loaded, and because of, I have this constant imposter syndrome, as some people would call it, I have trouble dealing with that word. But it is nearer to what I do, because no one comes to me and says, could you design a logo or something like that, or a brochure? So I'm learning to embrace it, I think. But yeah. I think, the core is interaction design, I guess, in its widest possible sense.
We were chatting a little bit about that earlier, and you mentioned, even your mother doesn't know what you're doing.
My mum is great, and she did come to. I had a solo exhibition, and all my work was up in several rooms, and she loved it. But she told her hairdresser I invented Google Maps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's something.
I said, that's close enough.
That's close enough, ma'am. Thanks very much for that. So, you're saying you've got a little bit of a hang-up about artist. What do you think is causing that hang-up?
Well, I think it's, when you say you're an artist, it means, you make art. And art there's a kind of brevity to art, I think. We were chatting earlier, weren't we, about the difference of art and design. And for me, art is very much about leaving you with questions. And I'm definitely more into that. I'm not someone who provides answers, and which I think design is largely about. And I think I've not come up in that world. I went to secondary school and then got a job. I didn't go to any kind of Royal College of Art or didn't hang out with other artists. So maybe that's where the anxiety comes from, I think.
Yeah.
And I have friends who, are artists and they're quite serious as well. And I'm serious about my work, but as an individual, I can't be that serious person where, I don't wear a scarf indoors. That seems to be the main thing for an artist, wear a scarf indoors. But I just can't embrace that like that, to be that serious person.
Yeah.
And it's, it's for other people to judge whether it is art or not.
It's a lot of the work that you showed in your talk today was like experiential design. So the stuff that you showed about was the LEDs and the Arduino. Tell us a little bit about that. The Price Waterhouse Group. It was in London, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Price Waterhouse came to me and they were developing this data lab in their London HQ, huge building, and they were having this data lab where the clients would pay to spend a day in this data lab and PwC explore their data with them and stuff, that kind of thing. And it was all filled with the latest technology, big touch screen and all this kind of stuff, VR, AR, blah, blah, blah. And they had a wall that was empty. with nothing. There were some TVs on it, but they came to me and said, could you design a 10-meter long wallpaper with some data-y graphics on?
Okay.
And so I went down to see them, and this was direct from my website,
Yeah.
So it's always flattering when people get in touch. And so I went down to see them, and I got the brief, and then I came away and I thought, you know what, we could do. The problem with doing that kind of work is as soon as you do it, it's out of date. And, it's kind of dead. It is literally just wallpaper.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I can do that, but why don't we do something else on top originally? And I said, maybe we could imagine the wall is filled with cubes that are all got LEDs in, and it's all controlled by real-time data from London. But they're covered in fabric, because what I noticed when I visited your place, everything was hard screens, or the data was trapped behind glass.
Yeah, it was pristine.
Yeah, it was pristine. There was no texture. I said, let me create something that had texture that was totally not that. And I did a proposal and did a few renders, and they really bought into it, so much so that in the end they said, we don't need the graphic anymore. Let's just have the cubes. And then, of course, it's, okay, well, how do I, how do you
do this?
I played with LEDs a little bit, but this was 220 cubes that were custom fabricated. Each one had 4 LEDs in.
Yeah.
Making the circuitry for that, and it was obviously, when you scale up, there's a whole raft of complication, and also it has to work every day. It has to have a control system where they can switch visualizations
and feeds as well.
Yeah, and different feeds, and then I collaborated with Kate Egan, who is head of textiles in practice at Manchester Metropolitan University, because I had this idea of fabric and was like, I don't know how to cover things in fabric. How do we do this? Luckily, I had a friend who did.
Yeah.
So it was a great collaboration with Kate, I think we did it over, I think it was about 3 months. We had, sometimes my projects are like a month, but that was about 3 months, and there was a lot of learnings, but we pulled it off in the end.
Yeah, in many ways, it's like you are a craftsperson with the digital medium.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, and I definitely felt that when you were talking about 3D modeling and 3D printing, the cubes.
Yeah,
and you were saying it took 12 hours for each cube and stuff. And we're going to put a link to this in the show notes, because we're probably not doing it justice. It's extremely visual, and. What was it? The feeds were coming through, and you get the...
Yeah, so there was 3 or 4 different feeds. One was Twitter, so anyone tweeting about London created this cascade of tweets.
Yeah.
And then there was PwC tweets were coloured a different, their corporate colour. The one they really love is, I did this sine wave algorithm that was tied to how well the tube lines were running. So if the tube line was running well, it would be really wavy. And then if the tube line was basically not running, it was just it flatlined. So you could see by looking at this that the central line is not running, or the northern line is, whatever. They really loved that one. And then there was the weather, so I tapped into the weather for that building as near as it can be. And it creates clouds, and the clouds are coloured by the temperature.
Yeah.
But they're also, the speed of the clouds is governed by the wind speed of that location. And then I had some random patterns as well. So the idea is, I'm thinking about the context of it. You've got a client coming into the room. You can have this thing on, and, it's a conversation piece. It's like, wow. So straight away the client might go, I didn't even know data could do look this like that, or do this. So, straight away you're trying to get them into a different headspace. Everyone's seen touch screens or whatever, and those by themselves are impressive because it's like room size. But my piece, I called it Carefully Everywhere Descending, which is inspired by an E. Cummings poem, and in that poem he describes snow as carefully everywhere descending, and I thought data is kind of like that, because it falls around us, but we can pick it up and do things.
Absolutely.
With it.
The easy option would have been to put in 20 Sony plasma TV screens on the wall.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about that was the risk that was associated with it.
Well, I'll tell you.
Not the risk, but in terms of a bad thing, but just in terms of it's become easy just to take the
of course,
absolutely, and to take that to a different level and bring that tactility back into design is something that as designers we need to do a lot more of. We need to push the boundaries, and when I saw that, I was like, actually, that's beautiful, because the fabric that overlay the LEDs created this kind of muted effect. And I guess you could probably speak a little bit more about the context. I know you spoke about the handle within the room, and so tell us a little bit about how you came to that decision about the.
Well, it was just mainly because when they showed me the plans, because this room was still being built at the time, as I mentioned, it was very hard surfaces. Digital technology especially is always seen as a very hard thing from an aesthetic point of view. And I'm like, really, it doesn't have to be like that. And if you create something tactile, people might interact with it more, or they look at it in a different way. And my whole purpose was to get people into this room and go, look, data can look like this. It doesn't have to be behind glass.
Yeah.
So that was all born out of what they had already designed. The context of the room was inspiring me to go, well, I'm going to flip it and do this.
Absolutely.
Even though at the time I had no idea how to make 220 cubes. I had no idea how to make the circuits. Everything about that job as well. Nothing is off the shelf. Those cubes are made especially for me. The circuits were made, so the wiring. I built the software that drives it. It's the only thing that's normal is it's a Mac Mini that drives it. And one of the big learnings for me was when you're rigging something like that, you need to get experts in, because on this one I didn't. I thought, well, I'm putting some cubes on a wall. How hard can it be? And I tested out, putting cubes on we had a plastered wall that we tried, and it all worked. And then so I have all these fixings made for plastered walls, and I get down there, and this was like, we were doing it after hours, so everyone had gone home, and started, right, I'll put the first cube on the wall, and the drill went straight through the wall and just left a massive hole. And it's now, I think, about 7:30 at night.
Oh my God.
And we've got to crack on, we can't go, we'll come back next week.
Yeah. Because
this room was being used at the time. It already opened. It was a
functional space.
It was a functional space. That's why we were doing it at night. And so I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, right, screw fix. Is there a screw fix open? And there was a screw fix open at 10:30 at night.
Really?
10:30. So we jumped in a cab, because we'd trained it down there.
Yeah.
Jumped in a cab, and we just said, right, I made a decision, let's go. So this cab driver, and I don't look like a builder, Kate doesn't look like a builder, and the taxi driver's going, can I just ask, why are you going to screw fix at this time of night? Because you don't look like construction workers. I said, no, we're not, and that's part of the problem. So we managed to get these fixings, and I bought another drill, and went back, and we just needed to screw directly into the wall, and I had a laser level and everything. I wasn't that bad. Yeah. So everything was laser leveled, and then that was it. It works. But I had to do like 440 holes. It was
a lot of work.
And it was in July. The air conditioning goes off at night to save money.
Right.
We were just
drenched.
You sweat. So these are the things that you don't think of when you're designing your thing in your studio.
Yeah.
You don't think, I'm going to be stood on top of a giant fridge, because it's where all the drinks were, drilling holes in. And I've since done, recently I did a big LED thing at Farnborough Air Show. Got a rigging company in, because these things were made of steel that I designed.
Absolutely.
And you can't mess about with that. So, and that was a world of difference. It was amazing.
Included in the
included, and
proposal.
the team was amazing, and
Yeah.
So I always try and you always end up learning with these things.
Yeah. And you had another fantastic piece, the happiness box, was it?
Machine,
happiness machine.
That went on to be the Airbnb thing, yeah.
Tell us about that. Where did that come from? And
well, it was born out of the internet and how people were being horrible. Well, they still are being horrible to each other generally. It can be an amazing place, of course, but the happiness machine was born out of like, oh, you know what? The other people on the other end of that handle, they're human beings, that you're slagging off.
Yeah.
So maybe I could make something that really hammers home that they are people.
Yeah. So how do you describe it so we can...
So it's a machine that's connected to the internet, and when you press a button, it's a very simple machine, has a button on it. You press the button, and a receipt-size piece of paper comes out, and it's found someone mentioning happiness.
Yeah.
And it'll find blogs and tweets or whatever. And then that's it. And you can print another one. And it's completely random.
And that's
it's
the magic
anonymous.
sauce. Yeah.
Now, and it sort of, people really love it. Put it on the internet and people really loved it. And it got blogs a lot. I think one of the core things is not just the message, but it's the form factor. It's the fact, if that was an A4 sheet of paper, I've just made a fax machine and no one would connect to that. But the fact that it's like tiny and the form factor, you hold it in your palm of your hand, it makes a difference to those ergonomics.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real. It's cuter though. It's smaller. It's more intimate.
Yeah.
Where an A4 sheet of paper is not intimate.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then, and it was out there for a few years, and then Airbnb get in touch, and it's
they took it to America,
and they took it to America, and we ended up doing a much bigger system so people could share stories on 12 machines.
Wow.
For the Sundance Film Festival.
So why do you think it feels a little bit better? Like you touched about on the music player, where you had the analog and the digital worlds coming together. Why do you think that feels so special, and what has been lost in the last, say, 15, 20 years in the digital revolution?
I think part of the reason is when you're browsing digital stuff, it doesn't feel, I don't know if it feels significant. When you're looking through an album collection, there's something happens when you touch something and you see a big image, or you're making a more considered choice maybe. Yeah. But also, I think obviously we're analog beings, and I described like putting the needle on the record, and that point between the music and the static, is important.
Is that magic?
Yeah,
that moment
that magic.
Anticipation.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, and we kind of lose that with the immediacy of digital. That said, I really don't want to paint a rose-tinted spectacle view of the past. My favourite quote about the past is James Murphy, LCD Sound System, in Losing My Edge. He says, fake nostalgia for the unremembered 80s. Yeah. It's like people romanticise the past. Oh, mixtapes were great, weren't they? And they kind of were nice, but they also chewed your music up, and
absolutely.
So there's a lot to love about digital, and I probably listen to more digital music than my vinyl, to be honest, but with my music player, and also it's the fact that I'm not having to bring up an interface to then browse what I want to put on. I just grab this thing and poof, and there's a niceness to go, the interface almost disappears. And I think that's, it gets out the way, but I'm still being able to do what I want to do. So I do use it every single day. I just need to put more albums on it, because I keep playing the same albums, really. But yeah.
So, like, for anyone listening, it was a Bang & Olufsen speaker system. Yeah. And you had connected up some Kodak. What were Kodak? Were they called?
They were like 35mm slides. Yeah. And they have NFC stickers on the back, which are dirt cheap. Yeah. And they nicely fit, so you can't really see them. And they become mini albums effectively. Yeah. And you just drop it in, and it detects. I've got a database that says, right, this NFC sticker is this album on Spotify. And then you can use this system called Mopedy, which is an open source thing that sits on a Raspberry Pi. Nice. And it tells that to play that album, and that Raspberry Pi is connected to the stereo.
Yeah, okay.
And that's it.
Yeah, and it was absolutely beautiful. Like I know I was sitting beside Jerry McGovern, and the two of us were looking at each other going, I want that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Everyone says that. I think I've actually sold physical things before, hardware. I've done a Kickstarter, and it was super successul. We got funded in 48 hours, and it was a button for your iPhone. It was like the first one that ever did that. But there's a whole other podcast just in that the story of that. But so I had a business making that, and eventually I had to shut it, because you realise that even though the product is successful and it was being written about in Silicon Valley, and it was amazing, if you do not have money for marketing, your product is dead in the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at how much money Apple spend on marketing.
And you are competing with that.
And they've got the biggest brand awareness of anyone, and yet their ads are everywhere. Yeah. So you realise how important it is. So all my money went on the product. I had no money left. So I think I made it run for 6 months.
Yeah.
But then you've also got the other things that go into hardware. It's like the support system. Electronics break.
Yeah.
You then have a support mechanism. You got a return system.
Yeah.
The levels of complexity, which is why I made it open source. Go, if you want to make it, here it is.
Yeah. And I guess if you were to include all that service model into the original price, you get end up paying a couple of thousand.
Well, this is it. It's not cheap to make, relatively. But then, like you say, to do it properly, the onboarding of where do they store their albums, how do they add albums, all this kind of stuff.
Integrating with Spotify and Google Play, and
as you know, the one, can it go with Sonos and all, So as you know, that's what service design is. You think about all this stuff, and it
goes beyond.
It gets very complicated very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm pleased to say people have built it, and I had a lovely email, and he used that. He said, "What a magical experience!"
It's a beautiful piece of design.
Cheers. And the industrial designer really loved doing that. Originally, it was because if you look, the angle of the chamfer is the same angle as how he put the album in.
Yeah, I did see that.
And so it's all that. I'm learning all this stuff as I do it. So
that's what's beautiful. We all are.
Yeah, exactly.
In the industry, there's a lot of people just kind of like they fake it and they don't tell anyone.
No,
well, I can tell you now, everyone is faking and they're learning on the job.
Before that, and it was squarer, and I thought, no, it needs to be at the same angle. Yeah. So I think that's why I make those things. Is I learn from them. So when a client comes to me, I can say, well, I know to make these boxes now or whatever.
Absolutely. I could speak to you for hours and hours. We haven't even spoken about the data and the way you work is fantastic, and it was really refreshing. I'm not just saying that because you're here.
Thank you.
To hear a different way of working as opposed to sticking to the same frameworks of ideation and
what? It's the only way I know, though. It's I've worked. I've had an agency and we've worked in teams and stuff like that, and I've been a creative director and we've just seen a great talk about process, really deep. But I was watching it and thinking, that is not me. Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah. So I think you have to be happy in your skin. Another E. Cummings quote we read yesterday was, he talks about nobody but yourself. And he talks about when you use words that other people use, you've failed as a poet. And he was saying that if after several years you've only written one line, you have succeeded. Because he was saying that it is so hard to be yourself and not copy other people.
Yeah, and that comes through in all of your work.
Oh, right. Well, thanks. That's good.
Absolutely. I'm not just saying that. It was really refreshing today, and we'll put a lot of links in the show notes to direct people to these because they're very visual and they're experiential. Yeah. To be viewed. Now, I mentioned before, as we wrap up every podcast, we have 3 questions, and what's the one professional skill that Brendan Dawes wishes he was better at?
You know what? I think graphic design.
Right.
Because I sometimes wish that I'd gone to university and really learnt the craft of graphic design.
Yeah. And of the masters,
from really deep level. Yeah. Like, I feel sometimes I lack that kind of depth. And sometimes, my naivety can lead to, different ways of doing things. But then I think, oh God, I wish I had the foundation of X, or whatever. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. I remember years ago I used to play music,
right? And
I remember saying to somebody, "I wish I was able to write music."
Yeah.
Or I wish I was able to do all these kind of different things. And they're like, well, the moment you learn how to write the music, you lose what you're good at. We were talking about specialism and generalism earlier, so I'm sure there's a lot of graphic designers that wish they were more able to think like you.
Probably, yeah. I think, it's always, it's the grass is greener thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the second question is, what is the one thing that you wish you were able to banish from the industry and why?
I would love people, well, obviously being snarky, but I think cynicism is not too bad a thing.
Yeah, good.
But I think, I am quite a cynical person. I think ripping people off, to me, inspiration is where you see something and you go, wow, that is amazing. But then you let it get fuzzy in your head. So the memory of that thing is dirty and fuzzy and noisy. and then you attach your things to that memory. That's inspiration to me.
Yeah.
Without that, it's copying. We're just replicating things. And looking at other people's work all the time. I think, God, just within my industry, like if that industry is digital, people are obsessed with like referencing other people's work when they're briefing you.
Yeah.
That is similar. So they'll reference digital things. I thought, well, why aren't you referencing, nature or a piece of architecture, even though this is going to be a digital thing? So I want people to, you know what? I think it's quite simple. Increase the bandwidth of what inspires them.
Yeah, nice answer to the question. And final question, Brendan, is what advice would you give to emerging design talent for the future?
Don't worry about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
I think, put those fears aside. Do not think you know everything, because the older I get, the more I realise the less I know. And so always be open and be curious. But yeah, I think it's that thing of like, you know what, just put your work out there.
Yeah.
Because you do not know where it will lead.
You document everything.
Document everything. But the Happiness Machine is a great example of that. I didn't know I'd end up, for several days at the Sundance Film Festival working for Airbnb.
Crazy experience.
To make this stupid thing I'd made.
Yeah.
If I could have just kept that and go, well, it's not finished, so I'll just won't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And I put it out there, and people look past the flaws and they go, I love what it's doing.
Yeah, the sentiment was really rich.
I would just encourage everyone to put their work out there.
Yeah, excellent. Brendan Dawes, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you'd like to be part of the conversation or community, hop on over to thisishcd.com, where you can request to join the Slack channel and help shape future episodes and connect with other designers around the world. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.